People told Joy Lanham that she was crazy when she wanted to start Lanham Engineering 10 years ago, but it's been a great 10 years. She's built her company, and today she's going to share some advice on how to grow a civil engineering firm in a world that's a lot different today than it was 10 years ago when she started the firm. So if you're interested in starting your firm or growing your firm, you've come to the right place. Let's jump right in. All right, now I'd like to welcome my guest onto the show for today. Joy Lanham is a professional engineer, licensed professional engineer, president, CEO of Lanham Engineering. Joy, welcome to the Civil Engineering CEO.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So before we dive into Lanham Engineering and the services you provide, let's figure out how you got there. So take us kind of through your career in a nutshell and how you decided to start this company. What got you there?
Well, I wish I had a really awesome, origin story. I just kind of needed an adventure, I was working in consulting engineering. I didn't always want to be an engineer. I actually wanted to be a pharmacist when I was in high school. So I kind of started down that path and then got into college chemistry and was like, whoa, pump the brakes. I decided I didn't like that and pivoted since I was good at, math and science type of stuff. I went down that engineering path and kind of found civil engineering. And then within that, I found traffic and transportation engineering. And then, got an internship, got a job, and then kind of needed an adventure and wanted to do something bold. So I had the crazy idea, hey, I'm going to start something on my own. And I just kind of went for it. So it's a little different from the typical CEO path, I guess. But also typical of many other industries. People just go for it every day.
For sure. And just for point of reference, so how long were you into your career when you decided to start the company?
I think so. I started full-time after graduation, and I was in that role for, I think it was about 7 years. So I was 2 years as an intern and then 7 years full-time. And got that bright idea. I'm gonna go for it at the ripe age of 30.
Wow. Okay. All right. So the bottom line is you're still going. So that's a good sign. So,
Yes.
So congratulations, because I know it's, starting and growing a small business, there's a large percentage of them that don't make it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And you have made it. So that being said, tell us about the company. What are the services you provide? How many employees do you have roughly right about now, to take us into the inside of the company?
Sure. So I started in 2013. So we just did our 10-year anniversary. We're a DBE Edge WBE certified company here in Columbus, and we focus on traffic engineering. We are a little different. We don't operate with an office space. We're 100% remote, and we have 8 people right now, but we are growing. So that means everybody works at home. So we've got 8 stay-at-home, work-from-home people, and that's how we roll. All of our work is traffic related, but both studies and design. Some people think traffic engineering and it's all about traffic studies. Yes, we do a lot of those, but we also do design. So on studies, we kind of focus on safety studies and then a lot of traffic forecasting, mostly for ODOT and the city of Columbus and in Ohio mostly. And our design work is, designing traffic signals, maintenance of traffic, tell them where to put the cones, signing and striping, and then also some lighting design. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell.
That's great. And congratulations on 10 years. That's awesome. That's a great milestone. So since starting Lanham Engineering in 2013, how has the company evolved in terms of the service offerings or the business approach? Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I started out, it was just me for about a year until I added my first employee. And, my initial business approach is very learn as I go, fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't have a business degree. I just had a passion for economics and, a logical approach to running a business. So I kind of just went with that. At my previous company, I really had a good opportunity to work on both studies and design and, kind of feel it out and see what I liked, which I liked both, and I love variety. So we kind of started from there. We'll do both. And then as I added people. We grew a little bit and then added a few more specializations. When somebody comes on and they have a really good experience doing a specific thing, we kind of add that to the mix. So it kind of started as mostly signals and signing, and then I got a good MOT expert. We added lighting most recently, but like I still want to stick with that core of traffic engineering because, it's one of those niche services that I want to be a little unique and not just have everything like everybody else.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good approach. In fact, I recently reread a book that I really like called The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz, which is a really good book. And he talks about like as a business, well, the way he stumbled upon the name of the book, The Pumpkin Plan, is because you always see like on the news, these couple of farmers that have these gigantic pumpkins that are like 1,000 pounds. And he kind of was like, that's interesting. It seems like it's always the same couple of farmers that have these like gigantic pumpkins. So I'm going to interview them and understand how they do it. And basically when he interviewed them, they were like, well, you look at the vine and you figure out like what the best pumpkin is, you cut all the rest off, and then you just focus on that pumpkin and you really like grow that pumpkin and nourish that pumpkin. So from a business perspective, you could think of it in that same way. Like you're focusing on those couple of clients that really, they're good clients, you're doing good work for them. And then maybe you might add a couple services to help them more without, getting too wide and too varied. Because I do think a lot of businesses kind of can get watered down or spread themselves too thin when they're just like, oh, we could add this, we could add this, we could add this. So I think having that core service offering and then maybe adding a couple little things that are analogous to that is definitely a strong approach, which it sounds like you've had success with, which is great.
Totally. So, yeah, we can be good at a lot of things, but I want to be great at like a couple things,
Right. Right. No, I mean, that's it, right? You want to be that expert in one specific field that people are kind of seeking you out for that service, essentially. Yeah. It's kind of like the other example that he gave, which was really good, was like, if you have to go for like heart surgery and you go to a doctor and the doctor's like, yeah, I do a little heart surgery. I work on some elbows, I work on some knees, right? Or you go to a doctor that says, I specifically focus on hearts. I've done 1,000 heart surgeries. I've had really good success. That's the one obviously that you're going to pick. So I think the same idea applies to like kind of a lot of businesses. So, yeah. So talk about some of the unique challenges that you face in the traffic engineering sector and how Lanham has had to kind of adapt around these challenges.
So right now, there's a lot of talk within traffic and traffic safety, especially on if Vision Zero is working. So that's a strategy adopted by a lot of states, cities, municipalities all over the country to reduce traffic deaths to the number zero. Like, that is the goal. And it kind of shifts mindsets from the old days to, more analysis and design to recognize that traffic fatalities are often preventable. And we can take kind of a systems approach to design and take in account that drivers make mistakes. Like, we know that. There might be more crashes overall. Previously everyone's like, get crashes down. Well, we now kind of have shifted to get serious crashes down and reduce the fatalities and get those to zero, because it is possible to do that. A lot of people believe we just have to kind of shift that mindset. So that's something that a lot of people are talking about right now. And our company is working with the City of Columbus and ODOT all over the state to work on safety studies to really put those strategies into practice and find some solutions to make these roads safer, one intersection or corridor at a time.
That's interesting. And I would imagine to be able to do that, you really have to think about the driver's experience and what, would lead them to make a mistake like you suggested, or so that you can kind of build in practices in your design to help to minimize that or correct for those mistakes, I guess you could say.
Yes, none of us are perfect, and we need to realize that and allow for some mistakes, just not the really bad ones. That's the ones we want to cut out and not let those happen.
That's great. So it sounds like your firm is, pretty innovative, pretty flexible, pretty adaptive. How do you kind of differentiate your business practices from some of those traditional engineering firms that are out there?
Yeah, I kind of market us as a different type of firm. I definitely do things different from traditional firms. I mean, it might be stemming from the fact that I didn't come with a business background. And, I was early in my career when I started. So I just wanted to build a place that I want to work and that others didn't necessarily do. One of those things is build a culture of flexibility, especially with that 100% remote work. which we did from the beginning before it was cool and everyone said I was crazy. Now they see how cool it is. And I make it so that, everyone who works at least 24 hours per week is eligible for benefits. So you don't feel that pressure having to hit those 40 hours unless that's what you want to do. Like, I want everyone on my team to have a robust life outside of work and not stress about, the everyday things that pop up that you have to run and go do, and like be energized when it's time to come back to work and really have a passion for it and not, the outside stressors making it just a stressful experience to work.
That's great. No, I think that's great. I think that that's some of the work and the research that we've done at EMI. Definitely there's elevated levels of stress and burnout in the AEC industry. So I think having a culture like that can help your team members to avoid that or, minimize that, which I think is awesome. And I think the idea of, I found in my career, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I started EMI and with no business background like you. And I feel like every time someone told me I was crazy, it worked out okay for me in the long run. So I think that that's a good sign. I think when I started my first podcast for engineers, people told me I was crazy and the engineers wouldn't listen to a podcast. And I think we have like 5 million plus downloads now. So I think it's good to be crazy once in a while, because that's how you do different and new things, really. Because, I was just talking to someone yesterday and we were talking about how pre-COVID, like there would be a lot of engineering firms or executives that would tell you we could never work remotely in civil engineering. We need plans, we need printers, we need all this stuff. And then sure enough, March 2020, like you snap your fingers and every company in the country is basically all remote, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think if you force yourself to try new things and you force yourself to innovate a little bit, it's very possible. You just have to kind of put yourself out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So can you talk a little bit about maybe, one business challenge that if is addressed effectively could bring about transformation for a civil engineering firm? Because I think there are challenges out there that many of them deal with.
Definitely. I think a challenge that most owners and managers would cite has to be hiring. Finding a great candidate for organizations it's always tough, but especially with so much work right now and so much money in the system. And we just do not have enough talent in the pool to, coming out of school and just already in it to fill that. Like, we as an industry need to advertise it as, an attractive, exciting career early on for kids and teens. And then universities need to provide more support for students, that require it to stick with it. And like leaders in companies need to provide mentorship to peers and like keep them engaged and reduce attrition, especially for women, because it's just always been a problem that we seem to not be able to fix. And it's killing us a little bit. We just steal from each other and not really making any gains and getting more work done.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I think it's a big problem. And I think we need to have a more uniform solution, across the US. One of the things we're looking into at EMI is maybe starting an arm here where we've had some success going to high school events where there's many students from different high schools. And actually we created an activity where they have to lay out a site plan, essentially. And they love that. And I think that sometimes like the misnomer that I've heard is that like, it's too late in high school. And I know for a fact that's false, because my daughter's currently doing the college search process. And while she has an idea of what she wants to do, most of her friends do not. So, it's not too late in high school for a kid to find engineering. And quite frankly, we can't just be talking about math and science. We need to show them like what engineering is. And that's why I think this site plan activity has worked. So hopefully we can help with that at EMI, but I do think we need to do something where we can like spread it out across the country and get consistent about it. Because I think at the end of the day, to your point, it just becomes like companies taking each other's employees, and an employee jumps to one company for a couple more bucks. And then like, that's probably not really, they're not going to be happy in that job. Right. And it creates a lot of issues in the industry. So I definitely agree that whole hiring talent pool is probably one of our biggest challenges industry-wide at this point. So Joy, if I were to ask your team to describe your approach to leadership and management, what do you think they'd say?
I think they would say that I'm very direct and very transparent, which are also odd things in engineering. There's lots of hush, CEOs making decisions and not telling anybody. Like, I don't like that. I want everybody to, know what's going on for the most part, or, know why I want to change something and have open communication about it. Like, I don't like to play games and hide things. And the only truly collaborative way is to listen to people and be open and get things out there, talk about things that I want to change. I'm constantly asking them, what can I change? Is there anything I can fix? So yeah, they'd say I'm very direct and just open and transparent about things. Maybe too much sometimes, but that's just kind of how I roll. And if that doesn't work for them, then I get the drift and I'll back off a little bit. But so far it's worked for 10 years.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, I think people appreciate that. They want to kind of know where things stand, for the most part.
Okay.
So if we have a lot of listeners that, of course, that are working civil engineers at different stages of their careers, and what advice would you give to the civil engineer out there that really wants to contribute and add value to their organization as they kind of grow as a civil engineer? Being someone that's obviously leading a company, what would you advise to people in that stage? They're young, they're aggressive, they want to help the company.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those right now. I do love that everyone, they want to do something that matters. I would say simply just say yes to more things. Like if your organization or your boss is asking for someone to take over a new project or try a new task, like raise your hand and speak up. The best way to get on your boss's good side is to make their life easier. Like take something off their plate. Jump in when, you kind of see them drowning. You don't need to wait to hear them say, hey, can you help me with something? There's a lot of stubborn engineers out there, and they're not going to admit that they need help. So just simply suggest something that you could take off their plate, and they're going to love it. I've got a great young engineer that said, hey, can I help with the social media? And I said, yes, please. And now it actually gets done. It's great to have people that just also take my hints of, I don't really have time for that meeting. I got to do this thing. They're like, well, why don't I just do that thing? And I'm like, okay, that's perfect. So yeah, make other people's lives easier, and you will get rewarded for it for sure.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think it's true that you can't assume that someone will ask you if they need help, right? Because a lot of times they won't ask because they don't think they need help, but they, in all reality, they probably do. And so, or they might be thinking the opposite, like, geez, I'd ask Joy to do it, but she's so busy, she probably doesn't have time to do it, right? So I think it's very good, kind of going back to what you said before, like just being forward in your career with your supervisor and saying, hey, listen, I really want to get better at this. So if there's opportunities to do that, I'd love to do it. I know for me, when I was a young civil engineer, I wanted to go to planning board meetings just to learn, just to observe. So I kind of just said to my boss, hey, would you mind if I just came along? I mean, I won't bill it, but I want to come once in a while and see how you present, see what the meetings are like. And, they let me do it. And to me, it was a big kind of game changer in my career, not only because I got to see the meetings, but I think when you're a designer on a project, it's helped for you to see the process and see your boss take it and present your design and what people are saying back. I mean, that could impact the way you think through your design as well, seeing the whole process. So I think, to Joy's point, anytime that you can kind of raise your hand and get involved and learn more is a good thing, and kind of being that sponge throughout your career, at all ages, to just learn more stuff. And even I think at the CEO level, then you probably need to talk to other CEOs and learn, what you don't know. So
Yep.
It's a continual process for sure. Joy, how is your involvement in, professional associations, the ACCs, the ITEs? How has that influenced kind of how you've built Lanham, the culture, the operations, and just really your career overall? I know you've been active in different ways, mentoring, leadership roles.
Yeah, I think professional organizations are really important for everyone, especially for those leaders. And serving on a board early on in a career gets really good experience and, seeing how teams work together, and it's good to build leadership skills. In my experience, I served as the WTS Columbus chapter president for 4 years, and it opened up a lot of doors for networking. And, I was launching my business at that time, so I had great contacts for my future client base, and just meeting all these people, being up in front, doing the public speaking stuff. It was great practice. And it's also a great way to meet future employees or employers. If, you're looking around and you're open to opportunities, meet with people network. Like networks are so important. I can't even tell you. And then ACEC is more where I get, that mentorship and camaraderie with other CEOs. And we kind of have, working groups and things there. So yeah, it's been invaluable. It's really great.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I've heard from a lot of people. I mean, you'll often hear people say, definitely get involved with associations, which is good advice. But what I've heard people say is that where you really start to really grow from it is when you volunteer into leadership positions in those associations. Like you said, you were the president for a few years of a chapter, right? That's where you're really engaging with people and, being active in the community. And I think that's where you can really grow that network and find some opportunities.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about mentorship and sponsorship in shaping one's career in civil engineering. I know you're passionate about those things.
I am. And it's so important, along with internships. College is great to teach fundamentals and teamwork and time management and all that, but it doesn't really teach you how to work and being part of that type of environment. So having an internship in school is, gets you a great idea of what it's kind of going to be like, and you can learn what you do and do not like. Mentorship takes it to a next level and gives you somebody to talk to, ask questions about, work issues, your career paths, all of that. It's great having someone, who has been there, they've had those same questions that you can learn from. And then also you reach back and do the same for someone else coming up behind you. It's really important. And then sponsorship is equally important, but different. And some people are less familiar with that. So, although this person could give you great advice also, they're that influencer at the importing meetings that are, suggesting your name for that big project or promotion. They know about your success and your ambitions and can throw your name in the ring when you aren't at the table, but they also need to know what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, they're like a supporter of yours through your career. Yeah. No, it's great. And they are important. And it is kind of like you said there, right? It's like this circle of life or the circle of your career where you get mentoring when you're younger, and then, you give it back as you grow in your career. And I tell people this all the time. It doesn't matter what age you're at. There's probably someone out there that you can mentor, right? If you're a recent graduate, you could probably mentor a local college student that's interested in maybe getting into engineering. So,
Yep.
I think there's always ways to give back. And I think obviously there's huge benefits to the community for you to do that. But I think also there are some benefits for yourself in terms of your communication skills and your leadership abilities that you're able to start to build as you mentor people, because it's really very similar to leadership in a lot of ways. So it's a good way to do that.
It's a good confidence booster too. If you're mentoring somebody, I actually mentored someone when I was right out of college, or a couple years out. I mentored a student, and now she started her own business and she's doing awesome now. It's so fun to see that growth and know, oh, I gave her a couple tips. It's so exciting. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's nothing wrong with, if you're a younger engineer out there listening, to specifically ask someone, kind of very pointedly, would you mind mentoring me? And it could be, and I recommend, if you can, doing something not overly formal, but just saying hey, can we get together once a month for coffee, or can we have a Zoom call once a month? Because I think if it's consistent, it's helpful for both parties, and it's definitely helpful for you because you can kind of keep track of what questions you might have. And then when you get that chance to speak to the mentor again, you can go through those questions. And it's like anything in life. I think the more consistency you have to it, the more benefit that'll come out of it for you, as opposed to, hey, I'll call this person whenever I need to, because you get busy and then things happen.
Right. Definitely.
All right. So last question I have for you, Joy. What advice would you give to those civil engineering professionals out there that are trying to grow their careers and they're really interested in starting their own firm in the future? What would you tell them on how they can prepare themselves for that journey?
Yeah, I think part of it goes back to some of the previous questions, say yes to more things, join professional organizations, get a mentor. Also, you've got to tell others your aspirations and goals. If you want to manage people or projects or run the place, but no one knows that, how are you going to be able to make that a reality? You can't just, hey, I'm going to do the thing. People need to know, because other people can, control some of the decisions. And you've just got to put yourself out there sometimes and just go big or go home. The same thing with starting a firm. You can't wait for, the right time. There will never be a right time. You've just got to go for it. talk to some mentors, do research, gain some confidence in your career, and then you got to shoot your shot. Like, it's similar to golf, which I love now. Like, if you just stand over the ball and overthink it, you're probably going to shoot a pretty bad shot.
Right.
Like, step up there with the club, make a plan, and take a confident swing, and you're likely to get some better results.
Right. Yeah. Overthink it. You must be an engineer.
I know. I'm a classic overthink. I'm a recovering overthinker.
Right. No, that's great. And I would say too, just from my own experience as an entrepreneur who, like you, didn't have any business background, I feel like every year I'm in business, another year is like just you build more. Like, I feel like I'm going to make it even more because like I learn a little bit more and I know something because I messed up something and now but we got through it. So now we know how to address it the next time. So I definitely think like once you start your business too, like sticking with it and trying to get through some of those tough times is just good kind of business school for you in itself. And I think one thing that I'll mention, which I wasn't very good at, but also thinking ahead of starting your business, just some of the finance side of it, right? Like building your credit, saving money where you can. I think any business owner wants to start their business with a low debt plan as possible, right? You don't want to take out a lot of debt, but certainly in our industry, you might need to invest in software. There might be some equipment that you need. So I think you want to be prepared for that. And that's sometimes the last thing we think about because we're excited. We want to start a business. We want to grow a business. So like, oh gosh, we got to buy stuff. We need money. We might hire someone. So it's like, it's a good idea to sock away your money and save up. So, well, Joy, listen, you've done an amazing job. Congratulations again on 10 years. It seems like you're doing great things and building your company in a way that's a little bit different than the traditional, but you've done very well with it. And I appreciate you coming on the Civil Engineering CEO show here and spending some time with us. So thank you so much for taking that time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Joy. She's doing some very interesting things, very innovative things. And hopefully if you're someone who wants to start or grow a civil engineering firm, you can apply some of what she's applied to date. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider subscribing to our channel. Here, we put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next week.